Hey everybody, this is TJR.
And this is Robert Kinsler.
And today, of course, the woman who has been referred to now for decades, I'm thinking since the 60s, she's
Right.
referred to as the Queen of Soul. Aretha Franklin has passed away, 76 years old, if I'm not mistaken, I believe so.
No, that's right. Hmm.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And apparently, from what I understand, advanced pancreatic cancer.
That's right. Yeah.
And of course, not unexpected. For the last couple of days, we've been hearing news that she was gravely ill and in hospice care for the last few days. So we knew this was coming. And so we're here just to kind of talk about and discuss the legacy of Aretha Franklin, the woman known as the Queen of Soul. Robert, did you want to, anything you want?
Yeah. I think let's first give a little background. I mean, her achievements are just, just so incredible. She was a winner of 18 Grammy Awards. And what's really amazing about that, I did some research, obviously, knowing we were going to be talking about her, but there was a run where, like, for 8 years in a row, she won the same award. I think it was for Best Female R&B Singer at the Grammy Awards, like spanning from I want to say like the late '60s through 1975. For 8 years in a row, she got that same award. That's incredible. But her achievements were amazing. I mean, 75 million records sold.
Mhm.
I mean, she was the first woman ever inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in 1987, and that was an award so deserved as far as her influence. And she could sing everything from jazz and blues to gospel to R&B. And I know one year in the late 90s, I want to say 1998, when Luciano Pavarotti was ailing, they actually brought her in to sing Nessun Dorma, which is the great aria from Turandot, the Puccini opera.
Yeah.
And she killed it. It was not an operatic version in the sense that Pavarotti would have done. It was very beautiful and just deeply, deeply affecting. And she was just a very amazing singer. There's no doubt about that. And what a profound influence she had.
Absolutely. What I find remarkable about her is just the fact that she could keep reinventing herself,
Mm-hmm.
and yet never really lose touch with who she was. Her career started, of course, first at Columbia Records, which actually was a period where even Columbia Records has stated we really didn't know who we had. We really didn't know what to do with her. After she was there with Columbia Records for a number of years before she chose not to renew her contract and went to Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
That's when she went to the famed studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
Right.
And that's when she recorded with the house band studios, and that's where she recorded the song I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You.
Yeah. You make me feel like a natural woman. Harlem and Respect.
Yeah. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
No, say that again because I didn't want to. I was talking over.
Yeah. No, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, and that may have been the first single she recorded for Columbia, right? As I recall. I think
I'm talking.
When I heard the interview.
I'm talking Atlantic Records though, right now.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was the first single, like you said, and the other thing that they let Atlantic let Aretha do that she hadn't been able to do it at Columbia, was she was able to play the piano when she was performing, and that was a key ingredient. That was a large part of who she was as an artist, was her getting to accompany herself at the piano.
Yes, a lot of times. It's funny. When I think of Aretha Franklin, of course, I think of that amazing voice, but I don't think of her as a pianist, though she is.
Right.
And it's kind of like telling Elton John to record without being able to play piano, or asking Eric Clapton to perform without playing guitar.
Right. Exactly.
The instrument can be part of what defines you as a singer and a vocalist. So that's an amazing thing that Columbia never let her do that.
Yeah, but I will say, in her defense, as I've over the years, I've got to know some of her early recordings that she had in Columbia, and I will say there's a couple songs I would really recommend that people watching this, if they're not that familiar with Aretha. There's a recording she did of a song. She was only 18, and it's called "Today I Sing the Blues." It was off her Aretha album that came out in 1960. It's a fantastic vocal performance. There's another song I absolutely love. It's one of my favorites by her. It's a song called "Only the Lonely and it was recorded in 1964, and it was written by Sammy Kahn and Jimmy Van Heusen. And it's just an amazing, amazing vocal performance. Mm-hmm. So even though she wasn't getting to play the piano yet,
yeah,
she was a gifted, great singer from her early teens.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there were some gems from that time period. People, like I said, it was when she went to Atlantic that she really began to find that success, and that's the name. The Queen of Soul was from those recordings, and of course, it's at the famed studios where she recorded "Respect," which is the cover of the Otis Redding song.
Right.
And, that's where, and of course, that became her signature song. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad to hear you mention those pre-Atlantic record songs, because as people have asked me, mentioned to me throughout the day about Aretha Franklin, the one thing I've always said, well, tell me what's your favorite song besides Respect.
Yeah. And there's one other track I'll recommend. It's actually a very jazz, because she was a great jazz singer, and she loved jazz even growing up, when she was primarily immersed in spiritual music because her father was a very well-known pastor. Mm-hmm. But that song is called Skylark, and that's an early recording. I think that's from the very early 60s too. A fantastic vocal display. And again, she was a very nuanced singer. She obviously had this amazing, huge soprano, but she could sing very tenderly and very deftly as well. And she proved that on some of those early recordings.
Wow, I need to hear that one. I have not heard.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to. I'm going to have to go look that one up. And what's the?
Yeah. And that one was called Skylark. And I don't think she wrote that song either. I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that's a song I've heard a few times, and it really has blown me away, because people think of her as a Queen of Soul, but she was so amazing at singing at jazz too, especially early in her career where she's often accompanied by an orchestra and this and that. Very different sound than she had like with Respect and some of her hits that she had when she was in her 20s. Later 20s. But yeah, and I think like we've talked about, I mean, back then an artist really could do different things, and I think have the opportunity and the time to explore passions that they had, and I think Aretha got to do that throughout her career. Yeah, I know she had the famous duets with the Eurythmics and with George Michael, and those were both hits. And I think a lot of people remember her from being in the Blues Brothers, and she was so great. That song that she sang in their "Think," and that's a great song.
Yes, "Think" is a great song.
Great song.
I was about to ask, if I were to be asked that question, the first two songs that come to my mind would be "Think" and also "Rock Steady."
Oh, "Rock Steady," another great one. Yeah.
Great funk, blues song. I love that particular song. But yes, the Blues Brothers, seeing her in that film, I think that might have been my first conscious exposure to her, because I was a kid when that movie came out. And I remember going to see it in the theaters, and that might have been my first really conscious exposure to her, was that motion picture.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing about her, that she did have, she would kind of fade or maybe have, I want to say they're temporary setbacks, and then she would come back and kind of reinvent herself and be rediscovered. And this was a great artist that deserved those rediscoveries, on the part of the public. And I think that's why, when she passed away earlier today, the Twitter sphere and everything blew up with all, from Beyonce and Florence Welch of Florence and the Machine, and President Obama and President Trump. Everybody was coming out acknowledging how central she, what a big part she was of pop culture, but just of kind of the musical landscape for so many decades.
And how many other female, not just soul singers, but female singers that she had an influence on.
Oh yes, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, like Annie Lennox and Florence Welch occur to you, that these are not people that you necessarily think of as especially in the sense of like African American spiritual music. But she had such a profound influence on so many other female singers, and I think she a great inspiration, because, like you said, she was able to have this longevity and this major impact.
Yeah, and I am impressed by the time I'm impressed by the many times she's been able to reinvent herself, because she did have these periods where her career was in a slump. In 1985, she wanted to have a younger sound, so she did the album Who's Zoomin' Who. Hit from that, Freeway of Love. In the late 90s, she made it back to the top 40 again with a song that was produced by Lauryn Hill. Rose is Still a Rose, I think it was called.
Yeah, and that was one of her last big hits, I think. But it is impressive when you think about that. She had, went online today. They said she had a total of 112 charted singles on Billboard,
Wow.
including 77 Hot 100 entries, 17 top 10 pop singles, 100 R&B entries, and 20 number one R&B singles. I mean, today someone will have one or two hits and they think that they're a bona fide, star for the ages. I mean, she truly was a star, and beyond being a star, she was just a great artist,
Yeah.
Immeasurable, significance.
Even as late as 2014, 2014 was the last album that was released that had her new recordings, I should say.
Okay.
That was let me see if I get the title right. Aretha Franklin Sings the Great Diva Songs Classics, something like that.
Right.
The Great Diva Classics, I think. Yeah.
Right.
That was in 2014, and she even got some. She didn't get into the top 10, but she did score into the top 100, top 50 or so with a cover of "Rolling in the Deep."
Yeah, and I've heard her version. It's fantastic.
Great version. It's a great version.
Yeah.
Even as late as 2014, she was still finding ways to reinvent herself and keep herself in the swing of things. I think that was just fantastic. I was very impressed by that.
Yeah. Yeah, she really had an appeal across so many generations and across people of so many musical tastes. Whether you're a fan of pop or rock or soul, of gospel. I mean, she could find audiences in all those areas.
I want to share a little story here. I don't know if I've ever told you about this.
Okay.
I was at a recording session actually at Capitol Records. And I was there with a bunch of people. We were doing backup vocals. And I'm not going to say who it was for because I don't want to name drop or anything. It wasn't Aretha Franklin, trust me.
Okay.
But it was for somebody. And the vocal, I guess, the vocal conductor, there was someone conducting the vocal group. And I guess somebody did like some vocal gymnastics on a part.
Uh-huh.
Oops, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Uh-huh.
And she like said, I do not want to hear anybody do that, And then she relayed a little story, and like I said, this is actually her story. I'm just relaying it. But apparently, Aretha Franklin was at some benefit tribute concert, and there were a lot of pop singers there. And backstage, Aretha Franklin just commented, "What's with all these vocal gymnastics? Doesn't anybody just sing anymore?" and she said, "And that's why I don't want to hear any of you do that. I want to hear you sing.
Yeah,
no vocal gymnastics." And
yeah, that's a great story.
That just really stayed with me ever. I just thought it was an amazing story.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyways, though, so, I don't know if, is anything you want to say? There's something I want to say in closing, but is there anything?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think the biggest tribute to Aretha Franklin's legacy, beyond her impact as, on music and her involvement in the civil rights movement, and which is obviously, I'm sure she would say, is even more important than her musical contributions to the world. But, the best thing is just go out and listen to her music. I mean, listen to some of those early recordings, some of the pop hits. Like I said, I would really encourage people to listen to some of the early gospel, jazz, and blues-styled material where she's covering some artists. But obviously listen to the huge hits like Respect, too, because that's where she did find her true, superstardom in the secular world, is doing those iconic recordings she did, when she went to Atlantic Records after leaving Columbia Records.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I don't think I think that's probably the best thing that I could say to what you just said. Yeah. It's always a shame. It's always sad when we lose another legacy artist like
it is.
Although I said this about Johnny Cash. I said this about James Brown. I will say this about Aretha Franklin. It's always sad, but I'm grateful that all of these artists, like them, had long, productive lives.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Let's be glad they had very long, productive lives. And in that time, they never stopped giving us music. They never stopped making new music. And so let's just be grateful for that, too.
And they didn't waste their time here. They made every second count, whether they were making music, raising their families, whatever they were doing. Yeah. But they left lasting contributions, and boy, have they inspired a lot of musicians, which we can both appreciate.
Absolutely. I think we've both said enough. And everybody, if there's anything you'd like to say in the comments, if there's anything you'd like to share, any memories about the music of Aretha Franklin, or her songs, anything you wanted to say, please share them with us so we can all read them. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, your thoughts and feelings about all this. Robert, thanks so much for getting together with me.
Oh yeah, great to review her great life and kind of celebrate her legacy.
Yeah. And anyways, though, everybody, it's always sad when this happens, but just be thankful for the music that's been left behind, and share us your thoughts. Everybody, just thank you for watching. My name's TJR.
And my name's Robert Kinsler.
We'll look forward to talking to you all again soon. Take care, everybody.
See you later.
Bye-bye.